Hello, my dear students. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. For a long time, I was not uploading a video in English. I was uploading my series in Hindi. But on the request of Northeastern students of India and of South Indian students, I'm uploading a video on Hobbes and Locke, the similarity and differences in English. So this video is also available in Hindi. So those who want to watch this video in Hindi language, they can also opt for that. So let us start. So first of all, you should know the basics of Hobbes and Locke before starting this lecture. So, the first similarity, they both were the English philosophers. They belong to England. The second difference, if you will see, except Machiavelli, if you will see all the medieval thinkers like Saint Augustine and other thinkers, they always said that religion is most important, the God, the spirituality is most important. They were giving more primacy, more importance to religion as compared to individual. So for them, the religion was at the center and individual was at the periphery, at the circumference. But on the other hand, so there was a drastic change in the thought of Hobbes and Locke. The Locke and Hobbes said no. Actually, they reverted the philosophy. They said that individual is more important. They given the primacy to the individual. The individual was at the center and the religion was given a periphery status. So that is a very drastic change which both the Hobbes and Locke brought in the political theory, which was different from the medieval theory, and hence the Hobbes is called the first modern thinker. In fact, Machiavelli, for the same reason, is called the first modern thinker because he kept the religion on the periphery rather than at the center. So this is the second similarity which we need to see. The third similarity, they both supported negative liberty. Let us try to make a distinction between negative and positive liberty. Here I would like to also make it clear that I'm not discussing about the negative and positive liberty, which is given by Isaiah Berlin. I'm just talking about the natural and a generic concept of negative and positive liberty. See, if a philosopher is supporting the minimal state or the police state, in other words, if the philosopher is advocating that a state should not interfere in the life of an individual, the state should only provide the security and the safety to the individual, then such philosophers are kept under the domain of negative liberty. On the other hand, the philosophers or the thinkers who are actually arguing that the interference of the state is justified in the life of individual, so they are kept under the positive liberty. If you will take the example of T.H. Green and L.T. Hobbes, they are the thinkers of positive liberty. They said that negative liberty is not enough. What is negative liberty? The state will not interfere in your personal domain. If you want to take education, if you don't have money, the state is not going to do anything because the state is not going to interfere in your personal domain. So what kind of liberty it would be? It would be a pseudo liberty, a false liberty. And the same is argued by T.H. Green and L.T. Hobbes. They argued that if a person is willing to take education, but if he is lagging money, if he does not have the finances, then it is the responsibility of the state to interfere in the life of that individual. And it is the responsibility of the state to push the individual for the education, to help the individual for education. In nutshell, I could say the negative liberty philosophers, they are arguing, they are advocating the minimum interference of the state in the daily life, in the daily activities of an individual. On the other hand, the positive liberty philosophers, they justify the interference of the state in the life of an individual. So this is the point to note it down. And here, if you will see, both Locke and Hobbes both are supporting negative liberty because they both support minimal state and police state, that that the state should not interfere in the life of individual. The state should only provide the safety and security to an individual. The fourth similarity, they both were educated from the Oxford University. The fifth similarity, you can see, they both rejected the innate theory of knowledge which was given by Aristotle and Plato. In fact, this is a very popular question. If you will opt for UGC NET examination in India, if you are an international student, let me give you an example. It is often this question is being asked in the paper, that who was the first philosopher who intentionally neglected or rejected Aristotle? So it was Hobbes, and later it was Locke. So, how the Hobbes rejected Aristotle? See, what is innate theory of knowledge? Here you need to understand. According to innate theory of knowledge, a person is having a kind of knowledge by birth. They have a kind of innate knowledge by the birth. But on the other hand, Hobbes and Locke rejected this whole philosophy, this whole analogy. They said, no, the individual by birth have no knowledge at all. The individual by birth is like a plain sheet of paper where nothing is written and there is no knowledge at all. Individual, when the individual come in the process of socialization and start learning, by empirical method, by experiences, by society, by surrounding, then the individual gains knowledge. Then something is being written on the paper. It is not such that by birth there is innate knowledge within the individual. This is the point to be noted down. And this is really a drastic shift from the theory of innate knowledge to the theory of tabula rasa. This theory is called tabula rasa, and tabula rasa is coined by Locke. Locke said that individual is like a plain sheet of paper where one could write anything. Okay, so this is the important point to note it down. The next point, they both believed in mechanistic theory of state. See, mechanistic word has been taken from machine, and machine is neither organic and nor divine. Machine is artificial. The ancient Greek philosophers like Aristotle, they believed in organic theory of state. They believed that state is even present before the individual. State is a living entity. It has life. It evolve and grow with the time. So this was the organic theory of state. On the other hand, the medieval thinkers, they believed the divine theory of state, that state is created by the God himself and the king is the representative of the God. But if you will see, on contrary, the Hobbes and Locke, they both supported the mechanistic theory of state. They both said that the state is neither organic nor made by or created by God. The state is artificial creation. The state is created by individual, by a social contract, by a mutual consent, by a mutual agreement. This is again a very drastic shift in the process of thought, which you need to note it down. The seventh similarity I will discuss, they both believed in natural rights. In a state of nature where there was no authority, there was the natural rights which was there for human beings, for individuals, right? For both, social contract was the source of the state. So how the state came into being, how a state was created? By a social contract which was based on the mutual consent of individual. Right now I told you the point. The ninth point, the social contract in which the people will enter, it is irrevocable in nature. You can't actually back off. You can't actually come out of that contract. Once you became the part of that contract, you have to be the part of this contract. You cannot violate this contract at all. So this is what I'm telling. So the social contract of both Locke and both Hobbes, both are irrevocable in nature. The 10th point you need to understand, which is pointed out by Leo Strauss. Leo Strauss is connected with the revival of political theory. You might be knowing about a debate, the decline of political theory. So when we talk about decline of political theory, David Stern, then Robert Dahl, Peter Laslet, these are the thinkers talking about the decline of the political theory, along with Alfred Coben. On the other hand, the Leo Strauss is talking about the revival of political theory. So Leo Strauss was the person to point out this similarity. In fact, okay. So he said, so All the thinkers before Hobbes, their philosophy was based on some normative ideal. The normative ideals such as honesty, justice, the perception of good life, if you will see Plato's state. So Plato ideal state was there in order to ensure justice to the people. On the other hand, if you will see the Aristotle, the Aristotelian state was for providing the good life of the people. But on the other hand, Hobbes and the latter thinker, their theory is based on the self-interest of human beings. Why the human beings came into the contract? If you will see in the Hobbesian state of nature, each human being was at war with everyone. There was the continual fear of death among individuals. The human life was short, nasty, brutish, and there was always a fear of violent death. To escape this situation, this fearsome situation, the people actually came into a contract and the state came into being. So the state came into being in order to serve the self-interest of an individual. On the other hand, if you will compare the Lockean state of nature, you can see the same analogy. In fact, Locke does not talk that there was a continual fear of death. Everything was all right. There was cooperation. There was mutual assistance among the people in Lockean state of nature. But though there was a problem, there was a kind of inconvenience. The inconvenience was there was a no authority who could interpret the law, who could execute the law, and who could adjudicate and who could actually settle the disputes. So three problems were there. Who will interpret the law? No central authority, no common authority was there. Who will add who will settle the dispute and who will execute the law? These three were the problem. And again, for their self-interest, for better life, right, and for their own better life, not for the community. They are not thinking about community, they are thinking on the individual level. The people again came into a contract. So you can see, as Leo Strauss emphasized on this point, that Hobbes and all the latter thinker, they all gave their theory on the empirical aspect, on the empirical ideal, which is guided by the self-interest of an individual. All on the other hand, the theories who were before Machiavelli or before Hobbes, they were based on the normative ideal. They had a rock foundation. So this is the point to note it down. Now let us try to understand the differences between the Hobbes and Locke. So first difference, what was the most important life event which happened during the time period of Hobbes and Locke, which actually shaped their political thought? So in the year of birth of Thomas Hobbes, there was a Spanish Armada attack. The Spanish Armadan army attacked on England, and this was the situation of fear. The second important event which happened during Hobbes is the English Civil War. And by both these events, Hobbes concluded that human beings are not good at all. The human beings are bad. So therefore, the perception of human nature, the conclusion which he draw on the human nature is clearly guided by the life events, that how he was surrounded by the situation, that guided his perception on the human nature. He came on the conclusion that human beings are bad, they are self-interested, they are egoistic and self-centered. Right. On the other hand, if you will see the glorious revolution of 1688, which converted, which transformed the English monarchy into the constitutional monarchy, was the most important event for John Locke. This revolution was a bloodless revolution. This was a peaceful revolution. And the Lockean perception came from this event. The Locke concluded that human beings are good. Locke acknowledged the point that human beings are self-centered. They are thinking about their self-interest. But at the same time, he also acknowledged, he also pointed out that human beings are guided by reason. They have reason. And Due to reason and intellectuality, they are also acknowledging the interest of other individual. I, as an individual, according to Locke, I will take care of my interest. But since I have reason, I have intellectuality, therefore, I will also acknowledge the interest and the need of the other individual as well. So, therefore, in nutshell, the human nature is good, according to John Locke. So, this is two differences which we need to uh, note it down. After that, let us talk on methodology. And actually, I'm recording this video in one go. Okay, I'm not taking any cuts or anything. Neither I'm using any editing software at all because I don't have the time. So I'm speaking just in one go. So therefore, if there will be any mistake in pronunciation, please actually I'm seeking pardon for that. Now, let us talk about methodology. So, if we will talk about the methodology of Thomas Hobbes, the methodology of Thomas Hobbes is more scientific in nature. The methodology of Hobbes is ordered in a sequence. In fact, it is inspired by Galileo. Like in physics, we have our methodology in mechanics in same way. On the other hand, many scholars point out that Locke does not had a clear approach, a clear methodology, and he just clubbed the different methodology, different ideas into a coherent whole. So there is no clear cut approach or the method which was actually taken by John Locke. And therefore, we could say here that John Locke is inferior than Thomas Hobbes if we will talk about in the terms of methodology. So these are three differences. Now let us talk about the state of nature. I already told about the state of nature, that what was the situation in a state of nature. It was explained by me just few minutes ago. So there was pessimistic view of state of nature, that men were the enemy of each other. They were fighting constantly with each other. There was the continual fear of death. The life was solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, and short. These are the points to note it down. On the other hand, the state of nature described by John Locke was quite optimistic in nature. The state of nature was good. The people were having cooperation. They were living peacefully with each other. Therefore, the state of nature was the state of peace, goodwill, and mutual assistance, according to John Locke. One important point to note it down. Hobbesian state of nature neither had society, neither had any society, and if there is no society, there is no art, no literature, there is no religion at all, and neither any state. So Hobbesian state of nature was pre-social and pre-political. Neither there was a social institution nor there was a political institution like state. On the other hand, the Lockean state of nature was just pre-political. It was not pre-social. There was a society, there was art, literature, there was religion, but there was no common authority. There was no state who could regulate, who could interpret the law, who could execute the law, and who could settle the disputes. So this is the important point to note it down. The fifth thing which you need to understand, the social contract. There was just a single contract in Hobbesian contract, in Hobbesian social contract, and a single contract was among the individual. The individual came together and they made a contract, and they submitted all their rights to a third person, to a monarch, to whom Hobbes called Leviathan. And this Leviathan was very powerful because all the rights were submitted by the people, and this Leviathan was neither the part of the contract. So people had no right to ask for accountability or responsibility from this Leviathan, because Leviathan is not the part of contract. So there is a single contract by which the society came into existence, and the Leviathan, that means the state. Here the state, Leviathan, king, monarch, all are synonymous to each other. You can take the example of the medieval period where there was a king, and king was conterminous to state. The state and king both were the same thing. King had all the rights, king had all the powers, King was a legislature, it was executive, it was judiciary as well. So this is the same situation with the Hobbesian social contract. So with single contract, both the society and the state, that is Leviathan or the king or the monarch, came into being. That is the point which we should know here, right? But here in the Lockean contract, there was two contract. By first contract, if you will see the first contract, by first contract, the state came into being. The individual had a mutual agreement among themselves and they created a state. And after that, there were a bunch of individuals who placed as a government, and there was a second contract with government and individual. That means there was a clear cut differentiation between state and government. And in fact, government was the part of the contract. Therefore, in Lockean state, one could ask for accountability and responsibility from the government. And in fact, the Lockean government was constitutional government. There were the limitation on the government from the part of the constitution. There were some constitutional law by which the government will be abided by. That is the point to note it down as well. So therefore, the next distinction I have written, next difference, that there is no distinction between the state and government, because Leviathan and the state, government and the state is equal to Leviathan, is equal to king, is equal to monarch. They all are conterminous, synonymous to each other. Like medieval period, the power was concentrated in his hand. On the other hand, there is a clear-cut distinction between the state and the government. And in fact, government was the part of the contract. And the same point would be repeated here. As I told you, the outcome of the social contract was Leviathan, that is the state. Here, the outcome of the contract in John Locke's social contract was Commonwealth. See, John Locke term state as Commonwealth. So there is no point of confusion. For John Locke, state is equal to Commonwealth. So this is the name which he is using in his book, The Two Treatises of Government. Here, now try to understand Leviathan. The state was not the part of the contract, right? So therefore, the Leviathan was totalitarian. It was neither accountable nor responsive because people had no right to seek accountability and responsibility from Leviathan as he was not the part of the contract. On the other hand, the Commonwealth was part of contract. Therefore, the individual had the right to ask for accountability and responsibility from the state in the Lockean state, right? The ultimate objective in Hobbesian state was to protect right to life because only this right was with the people. They didn't submitted the right to life to Leviathan. Except right to life, all the rights were submitted to Leviathan. They surrendered all the right except right to life. On the other hand, here during the contract, people only surrendered only three rights in Lockean contract, that I will not interpret the law by myself, neither I will execute the law by myself, neither I will settle dispute. For that, there will be a central authority. That will be the state. Or in other words, the representative of the state. That would be government. Right. So this is the point which I was making here. Okay. So the ultimate objective of the Hobbesian state, Hobbesian Leviathan, was to protect right to life. On the other hand, the ultimate objective of Lockean Commonwealth is to protect the natural rights which were there with individuals in state of nature, and that natural rights are right to life, liberty and property. Okay, that is not fraternity. By mistake, I think this is a typo error. Now, state was absolute and sovereign. Okay, it is obviously the state will be sovereign as it is totalitarian and no right is there to the people. There is no limitation at all from the part of the constitution. There is no constitution at all. There is just one limitation, that the Leviathan cannot take the right to life. If Leviathan will go for right to life, the people can rebel, the people can revolt against Leviathan. So this was the right to revolt which was acknowledged by Thomas Hobbes. Okay, now here, as I told you, the state was sovereign, but there was constitutionalism. The power of state was limited by constitutional laws. Okay, the revolution. So when one could revolve sorry, revolve, I'm saying, when one could revolt in Hobbesian state. So one could revolt in Hobbesian state when the right to life is violated, okay, as I told you. But here there is the wide range of reason for which one could revolt in Lockean state. There is four reason which is given by John Locke. The first reason, if the state is not acting according to the desire of citizen, then one could revolt against the state. If executive are not allowing the legislature to function, then one could revolt against the state. And if the executive is not abided by the law of the constitution, then also the uh, individual could revolt against the state. And when I'm saying state, they could revolve against, sorry, they could revolt against the government, because government is the representative of state, because state is a abstract idea. You actually can't see the state, right? State is just the imagination, right? Government is that entity which is representing the state. This is the point which we should note down, okay? So one could actually replace the government by another government in Lockean social contract, right? In Lockean state. So this is the point which we should remember. So here the individual had limited rights in Hobbesian state. Here we have wide range of right. Then freedom of religion was there in both Hobbesian state as well as in Lockean state. But here Hobbes had wider freedom of religion, because Hobbes also accepted means one could be atheist in Hobbesian state. One could may be non-religious, but on the other hand, the Locke said that people could choose their religion according to their own choice, but one should not be non-religious person, because a non-religious person is danger to the society, because who is not having fear from the god, he is a very dangerous person. Therefore he does not allow a atheist person, right? That is the point. As I told, there is no separation of power. The king or leviathan or the monarch is having the law making capacity, the law executing capacity, and the ability to settle dispute. On the other hand, there were the different branches, the separation of power, right? The legislature will make the laws, the executive will execute the laws, and judiciary will settle the disputes. One more thing, I have discussed this point in the sovereignty lecture when I was telling about the Hobbesian sovereignty that is available in Hindi. I'll soon make a English version of that as well. See, according to Thomas Hobbes, there was no property right. Means there was no guaranteed property right in a state of nature, because in a state of nature one may kill some other person and can may acquire the property. So therefore the property right is not secure at all in a state of nature. And when the Leviathan came into being, Leviathan ensured the right to property. Therefore Leviathan is the creator of property, and Leviathan can take away this property, can violate your property right anytime. So the property right is not permanent. It can be taken away by Leviathan, by king any time in Hobbesian state. On the other hand, the right to property is sacred, is pious, is sacrosanct, is transcendental in the Lockean state. One could not take the property of an individual. In fact, I told you that Commonwealth came into existence for protecting the natural right of a people, and right to property is inherent, inalienable property right. So this must be protected by Commonwealth. So this is the point which we should note it down. So I hope you understood what I'm trying to say. In fact, Locke is the political thinker of capitalist class. He supported capitalist class, the bourgeois class, the bourgeoisie class, right? So therefore, the right to property is in fact a sacrosanct part for Locke. If you are a student of BA Political Science Honors, and if you have the paper Classical Political Philosophy, and if you are having the topics such as text and interpretation, Plato, Aristotle, Machiavelli, John Locke, and Thomas Hobbes, then the notes for answer writing and concept are available. That is just available for 100 rupees for next 5 days. Okay, after 5 days, the notes will be for 150 rupees. So one could avail for the notes. They can WhatsApp on 70610648884881. So this is my WhatsApp number. One could contact and one could buy or purchase the notes. Okay. If one is international student and using the PayPal, then one can use +91 code and they can WhatsApp on this number. They need to make the payment on PayPal. After that, they could purchase the note. That price will be different for the international student from Europe or from other country. So have a nice day. I hope you understood my lecture. So we are going to meet in next lecture. Have a nice day.